there seems to be some question over whether Trump is going to remove funding from FEMA.
Yes, the infamous Federal Emergency Management Agency, no fooling, created April 1st, 1979 under Carter. It's been the subject of much patriot lore over the years. We've all heard about allegations of FEMA camps where resistant and rebellious Americans might be kept in the event of societal breakdown, whether it's man-made or not. This has been sort of an urban legend, or maybe a little more than that, for many, many years. But now there's a council being formed. We can show this executive order title page from the White House. They're going to form a council to assess the Federal Emergency Management Agency and take a look. Is it really doing us any good? Is it worth the money? And at any rate, despite obligating nearly $30 billion in disaster aid each of the past 3 years, FEMA, according to the White House, these are excerpts from the executive order, by the way, FEMA has managed to leave vulnerable Americans without the resources or support they need when they need it most. FEMA therefore requires what the White House is calling a full-scale review, and this new council will carry out that review, and that will be consisting of individuals highly experienced, the White House says, at effective disaster response and recovery, who shall recommend to the president improvements or structural changes to promote the national interest. But this talk of reform and change, I think, is cover for considering actually getting rid of FEMA. We'll see. With the Department of Education, we learned recently that they weren't quite ready to pull the trigger and get rid of it. So will they or won't they? Northeastern University published a little bit on this. Trump signs the executive order reviewing FEMA, raising concerns over disaster response, because what they're saying is that this could be returned to the state level. And those that support FEMA, even though they're saying it's not perfect, are basically saying we might do worse without them when really bad weather happens. At any rate, this executive order follows Trump's visits to North Carolina, where Hurricane Helene hit, and he visited fire-stricken areas of Southern California. And that's when Trump reportedly suggested eliminating or downsizing FEMA. And according to this executive order, also, this council, which would be called the Federal Emergency Management Agency Review Council, chaired by the Homeland Security and Defense Secretaries, defense is in there, will assess FEMA's effectiveness over the past 4 years, comparing its response to state government and private sector efforts. And I'll just note, it's a noteworthy historical note that this is the 20th year since Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, where FEMA was accused of widespread abuses of property and residents there. And there were also claims of disarmament schemes going around house to house, disarming people, asking them to turn in their guns. Some things were true. Some things might have been a little bit exaggerated. But FEMA got a black eye during the years of Katrina 20 years ago, and they haven't been able to totally live it down since. So it's not just the recent fires and Hurricane Helene. It's a deep-seated distrust of FEMA that goes back at least as far as Katrina 20 years ago. So we'll see what happens. But this would be a fairly major change if they carry it all the way through via that council. So that's it for today.
Thank you, Mark. Any brief comments?
On that story, no, but I was watching the chat, and I normally don't comment on the chat, but somebody is basically saying that I'm wrong about land seizures in South Africa, a number of users, and they're citing Visegrad 24 as their source. Visegrad 24 is an Israeli-backed propaganda outlet, pro-genocide, and also have been campaigning for the Ukraine war, pro-Ukraine war, since the beginning. In fact, before the war, they were campaigning for a war. So that is an actual propaganda outlet. So, and the other thing they say is you need to look on Telegram. There's people from all over the world in chats. Telegram is not a reliable news source. It is also a source of massive fake news and propaganda. When you're talking about the South African government seizing land of white farmers because they're white farmers and so forth, a lot of the reports that people are citing in the chat room are not actually factual, and they're devoid of context. If you actually go and look at the legislation that started this furor that Elon was tweeting about, it's very clear in that legislation they're repealing a
74
apartheid era land appropriations piece of legislation, modernizing it, and it's under the guise of eminent domain. United States, we have eminent domain laws, as do the UK and other European countries. All countries have eminent domain laws, and there are certain guidelines and rules for compensation for whether a land can be taken by the state for whatever reason. There is a process there, and that's outlined in that legislation. Okay, it's on the government's website. So go to the South African government's website and see for yourself.
Okay, thank you for that. We got to leave it there for today. I'm going to say thank you very much to Mark and to Patrick for joining me today. Thank you all for watching. We'll be back in a few minutes for some UK Column News Extra. If you're not a UK Column member, please consider joining us for UK Column News Extra each day. So see you there in a minute. See you then. Bye-bye.